is loading, and I think that we are live. Yes. So, hello everybody. Welcome to the 12th episode of Hell in a Handbasket. Am I correct? 12th episode? I think so.
12. Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
Perfect. Not every day, not every episode I get the right number. So today we're going to talk about this brand new documentary that just dropped January 15th, as you can see. It's called, it's by the Atlantic Council. And this episode of their um, documentaries, like they'll do documentaries, like kind of sometimes like they're pretty short form. And Nanya and I were going to be picking this guy apart because there's a lot of very interesting stuff that they do say here. So you've
Yeah,
watched it, right?
yeah, watched it. I watched it this morning, heading on the train to work, and look forward to reviewing it with you. A bit of context for those who don't know about the Atlantic Council. The Atlantic Council is I would say they're pretty influential think tank in
Yeah,
Washington.
they're one of the big
And
ones. The big
yeah,
ones.
and basically what happens with all these think tanks is these politician types and these bureaucrat types, once they're done with government or once government is done with them, they kind of shuffle off to these think tanks for a couple of years where they can continue to wreak their havoc until
Exactly.
there's another opportunity to get back into government and do some serious damage. So that's basically what the Atlantic Council is in a nutshell. As
And
Bradley
as you
said,
can,
they're very influential.
yeah, they're big. They're one of the big fishes, and North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and then the Atlantic Council. You can kind of see what their slant is, what they're coming out from, and they're going to be justifying of NATO, and so this is a consistent pattern with them. It's it's their stick. It's kind of what their purpose on this planet is. Like they're put here to that sing the praises to NATO, So anyway, they released
Well,
this hilarious documentary. Go ahead.
and I think as you watch through this documentary, I think what Bradley just said was important because think of the Atlantic Council. This is the propaganda wing of the elites, the globalists, right? These are the people who create these white papers and they create these studies and they create all of these
Mhm.
official sounding things
Yeah,
that,
when the New York Times says that something happened, they'll take a
right,
document that these guys wrote and they'll
right.
take it as authoritative.
And when they want to refer to an expert, these are the people that they're referring to, these types of think tanks.
Mhm.
So think of the Atlantic Council as being one of the best think tanks out there. Now, as you're watching this
I wouldn't say the best of
documentary,
the best. I would say one of the elite, like
okay, yeah, fair enough.
extreme.
One of the best think tanks.
Okay.
Now, as you're watching this documentary, have that in the back of your head that these are some of the best at doing this, and this was the product that they produced.
Yeah.
So,
So before I
and
start with that,
yeah,
I want to take a look at. I pulled this up on RT today, and it just reminds me I should read RT more. I don't go to RT very much because I try to get my Russian propaganda from, Russian language sources. But RT really makes it so much easier. But anyway, Ukraine conflict needs to end. Rubio, the new U.S. Secretary of State, claimed both Russia and Ukraine will have to concede something for peace. So that's a big deal, a massive deal. Says that Donald Trump will begin working on a ceasefire agreement for Ukraine almost immediately. Rubio is the first high level cabinet member of the new Trump administration to be confirmed by the Senate on Monday. Speaking to journalists, he said that Russia and Ukraine will be a, quote, top priority. Top priority for Trump, and that efforts to reach a ceasefire will begin straight away, but did not give a specific time frame, blah, blah, blah. But basically already been, okay, some of the groundwork has already been laid. It's complex. It's a complex conflict and not a bloody one, and a bloody one. It needs to end. So I don't really see where, I don't remember here, but they did point out that maybe it was a different article I was reading. They did point out that Trump had like some kind of 100-day plan for Ukraine. But anyway, so
well,
on.
I was actually going to give the context, a little bit of context after we watched it.
Mhm.
But now that I think about it, it might actually be more, it might actually be better to give that context before we watch it, because this has all popped up within the last few months. This whole, I'll call it the Baltic narrative. Um, it started several months back
I love
when
it. The Baltic
one
narrative
of the underground cables, one of the underground internet cables or network cables, whatever it was, it
between
was
Finland and Estonia.
yeah, and it ended up getting damaged. Now, at that time, this was last fall sometime, from what I recall. At the time, the mainstream media, particularly in Scandinavia and the Baltics, they were screaming bloody murder. It was the Russians, it was the Chinese, it was this, that, and the other thing. Um, and Russia bad,
Well,
China
they
bad.
used
That
it
was
as an excuse to board Russia's ship, and they said that there
well,
may
that was
have
the
been.
next one, right? So there was the first ship back in the fall in China,
Oh, right. Okay.
and that's
Okay.
when if I was to piece all of this together, I'm guessing after that first cable broke, that's when the folks at the Atlantic Council started working on this.
Started this.
Yeah, because keep in mind, like this wasn't produced overnight. This took some time to put together. This, like, nothing
Yeah,
like
they
this
go all the
is.
way to Ukraine.
Yeah,
It took funds. It took time. It took a lot of effort to make this
right.
26-minute propaganda piece.
Right.
That
So
took
when I start to work backwards and I think about it, I'm guessing that the thing that triggered the Atlantic Council on this whole narrative was the first cable breaking that they accused the Chinese of. Now, fast forward a couple months later, in December, a second cable broke,
right. And they
right?
accused the Russians of that. They said it could
And
be
that's
either
when
or.
Yes, and that's when they accused the Russians of breaking yet another cable. So then all of a sudden, if you look at the media from, I'm going to say, like whenever it was, mid-December to late December, there was just a flurry of articles coming out of Scandinavia and the Baltics, talking about, once again, bad Russia, bad China. We need to basically patrol the Baltics more, et cetera, et cetera. So
Right.
that was the narrative. However, the reason I'm giving you this background is, uh, you're gonna see in a second. Let me just, can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah. Hold up. Let me stop sharing mine.
So the narrative that they were building up,
Point your
I
screen
think,
one.
was,
One slice.
oh,
We
that's not
heard
the one.
I am.
What the, yeah, no, that's our two
Definitely
scoops. We'll
not.
we'll get to that later. No, I'll share it. Don't worry about it. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, so that was the end of December, and they were building up the narrative that a couple things: Baltics need to be patrolled. We need to patrol the Baltics more. Russia bad. We need to get the Americans in. The Americans need to patrol the Baltics. That was the narrative that was building. In other words, we need to keep America in Europe. Now, we fast forward several weeks later, and the other day, this came out. And if I can't, I'm not very technically savvy, guys. Uh, Come on, share. Why won't it share for me?
Mhm.
Oh, I understand. Sorry, I'm brain dead. I'm a Gen Xer, guys. I'm not technically savvy like Bradley is.
Uh,
Can you see this article here?
yeah.
Can you see what
Accidents.
I'm sharing here?
Yeah. Accidents,
Yeah.
not Russian sabotage.
Yes. So this article came out, I believe it was on January 19th, maybe, or 18th.
Damn, dude, I did not see this.
Yeah, well, and the reason I'm bringing this up is, if you look at the timeline from the Atlantic Council, the timeline of the Atlantic Council, I think they published this thing mid-January. Yeah. So they published it on January 15th, and
Hmm.
this was the whole narrative. And then 3 days later, out comes the Washington Post via, the US elites, basically discrediting everything. And they're saying, no, this is all crap. It was just accidents. It is what it is. So it just goes to show, I think I wanted to highlight all of this like in the whole timeline. It just goes to show that things are shifting faster than the narrative can actually shift, I guess is what I wanted to prove here. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's crazy that they just like did that. Like that's nuts.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I thought that was pretty, like, from the end of December to mid-January, the narrative completely shifted, and everything that they had been building up on with that Washington Post article killed the whole thing. And I think it sends a message that Washington has no interest in getting involved in any sort of Baltic Sea adventures, right? With the rest of them. So anyway, a bit of context for you guys. Chew on that as you're watching this fine film by the good folks at the Atlantic Council.
that's right. All right.
And, we'll be pausing it just to comment as we go along because there's so many silly things in here.
Yeah, so let me know if is it a little loud. Should I turn it down?
I can't hear a thing yet.
You haven't heard anything? You can't hear anything right now?
You're not sharing anything yet.
I'm not?
See, okay. And I was just saying how technologically savvy he was.
Dude, no.
Literally, like 3 minutes ago. I
straight up admitted it. I was like, that's an exaggeration. No way. Do not call me tech savvy. There we go. I have no idea why it does this. Be careful sharing audio. Got it. Okay. It should work now.
Standing tall on NATO's Eastern Front.
How's the volume now?
It's fine with me. Yeah.
Okay. It might be a little loud. I feel like, I don't know.
A European armada on alert for threats to its economic lifelines.
Of course, you feel much more confident knowing that you are a member of NATO when you're out there and when you experience Russians on the sea.
And Chinese ships with Russian crews suspected of sabotage.
No.
Russia couldn't be in the war right now at this point if there wasn't Chinese support.
High stakes on the high seas as war continues to rage in nearby Ukraine, destabilizing the entire region.
Because you could be next.
We could be next.
All of us are thinking that what happens next? Can we be the next target?
Can you pause for a sec?
Yeah.
So I, a couple things that I'd just like to note. Number one, the ominous music, right?
Yep.
In the background, right? Like, we could be next. Okay, fair enough. Let's keep going.
Yeah, dude, I gotta figure this out. My cat is going to not give me any peace or any rest if I don't. Here, cup of cat, do this. Try to chill there. Okay. Now, if I'm going to have my cat chill there, I cannot use a mouse. So I have to use a trackpad. Excuse me, technical difficulties. All right, should be good now. Putin's Endgame. The stakes beyond Ukraine. It's like this super intense music.
I'm about to embark on the HMS Sundsvall, one of the corvettes in the Swedish Navy, as it's about to take part in one of this nation's first missions as the newest member of NATO.
The Sundsvall cuts through choppy waters. It's traversing the shallow and strategic Baltic Sea on a mission quite unlike any other. As the newest member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the Swedes are taking part in Operation Freezing Winds, a NATO exercise hosted by neighboring Finland, another newly minted partner in the alliance. After Russia's large-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022.
So this is the first time that I think the second time that I've noticed them use this language. Not full-scale invasion, but large-scale invasion. And I think even in this documentary, they go with there again. I don't know if they even say full-scale invasion in this entire documentary, which is, I think that's an important detail.
In what way?
Well, that they're admitting that the invasion wasn't full-scale. It's just a large-scale invasion. Because the full-scale invasion, there was two things that they were saying about the invasion all along, right? That it was unprovoked and that it was full-scale. Or it's just unprovoked, sure. Full-scale invasion. Yeah, all the time. It was always those words. That's how, the narrative was set. And to have the elite narrative setters switch their language from full-scale invasion to large-scale invasion, that is a step back in rhetoric for whatever reason.
Yeah, fair enough.
Both countries chose to abandon their longtime stances as neutral, non-aligned nations for the sake of security. Lieutenant Commander
Why?
Buffgren is the Sundsvall's captain.
Can we stop for a second?
For the sake of security. I don't know, man.
Okay. Well, and this is the thing that I kind of don't understand with Finland and Sweden for sure. They were neutral. Like Russia wasn't going to attack them. Finland actually had a pretty good relationship with Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. Hopefully they'll give us some actual concrete evidence and not just more of this rhetoric, but that's all we're seeing so far. It's more of the same old Putin bad, boogeyman, and now Sweden and Finland have joined the party, and they feel the need to be secure from someone who was never posing a threat to them. Okay, sure. Way to go, guys.
This is what they keep hammering in this entire documentary of like, oh, we're so safe now.
Going to happen did actually happen, that Russia invaded one of their neighbors. So it was quite a awakening for the whole Swedish society and of course the Swedish armed forces.
Bit of a shock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bit of a shock for the entire region.
Yeah.
Well, didn't Russia and Georgia go to war like not too long ago as well? Did they not forget that?
But they didn't really change the borders there, right?
No, I get it, but it's this guy is clutching his pearls, talking about an invasion of Ukraine. Fine, but it's not like it was unexpected. Russia was there for 10 years prior, so
unprecedented either. It's not like how shock and chagrin, this was, nobody could have possibly, when we saw this, it shook us to the core and we had to give up our neutrality that has served us so well for such a long time.
That's what they appear to be saying. Yes.
Yeah, that's like the story here.
Like it shook them to the core, to their foundations, that, oh my God, the threat is real. We need to, embrace the loving bosom of Uncle Sam and the EU NATO party, because it would be impossible to do anything else.
Well,
right? That's basically what they're saying.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's what the people in the Atlantic Council would be saying in general, because that's their shtick. But also, like, I think that there was an era where Europeans had a little bit more ability to push back against the Americans, like in the 2000s. But that shifted. Nowadays the Europeans are our bitch boys.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
What do you think will happen should Ukraine fall?
I don't want to think in that context, but you have to as a military. God forbid, because Russia can acknowledge for themselves that it's okay to invade other countries and being successful. So, well, of course, NATO will be much more important than it already is, which is very important.
It is in the belly of this state-of-the-art vessel where constant surveillance and detection takes place. Cat and mouse, east and west, a new Cold War. Each side, for now, keeping its distance, but suspicions are high.
Stop. The guy with the big binoculars. I don't know. It's just so cheesy.
But suspicions are
so... It's stereotypical of what you'd expect to see of a Soviet back in like 1980s action movies, where they'd have like big 18-inch binoculars, because that's all the Soviets had, like, it's just like, look at this clown.
Well, I think it's supposed to give you the big ship vibes, like the military ship vibes. And look, they got their shit together. Look at these awesome gloves. And they even have like the hat going on too, because they're cool like that.
Hi. NATO's Article 5 states, should any member be attacked, it's collective security. An attack on one is an attack on all, including...
No.
Well, he said they're clever, because that is technically what it says. It's just that there's no obligation to go to war. You could say attack on one is an attack on all, but that doesn't mean that you gotta, start World War III necessarily.
Yeah, so isn't it to Article 5? All it is, they're going to agree to meet.
Yeah, so it's like
something like that.
It's like maybe a deceitful by omission, but I mean, technically.
Yeah, Article 5 is something along the lines. Yeah, we'll agree to meet and determine what the best course of action is. Right, something like that. I forget the actual.
but it is an attack on one is an attack on all. That is a thing that they say there.
Okay, good luck to you on that.
Eleanor Larson is a surface warfare officer.
What's a surface warfare officer do?
The surface
What does a surface warfare officer do? Larceny.
Is a surface warfare officer.
What's a surface warfare officer do?
the surface-to-surface missile is our main weapon. So we're kind of like just coordinating the surface picture. So all the civil ships, we know about them.
The Baltic is not a deep body of water. Belligerents can get up to no good here, causing potential chaos without firing a shot. Just as we were crossing
Here we
in
go.
late November, one of those civil ships, the Chinese-flagged bulk carrier Yipeng 3, was accused of dragging its anchor along the seabed, cutting
Never proven.
data cables
Exactly.
linking Finland and Germany, Sweden.
They did say was accused, right?
Yeah. And you see, and as you're watching, pick up on what Bradley just said. Was like these are very key words that they have in here. They put these little qualifier words in here just so that they can kind of maybe convince themselves that they're not lying. I'm not sure, but it's a way to not directly accuse the Chinese, but still accusing the Chinese, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Right.
it's almost like a little bit of a just clever language manipulation.
Right. Wordsmithing that, you know, unless you're really paying attention, you might be fooled by it.
Yep.
Lithuania.
In the case of Baltic Sea cable cutting, it was a Chinese ship with a Russian crew.
Never proven.
Exactly. This is exactly the point. They just assert it. They just say it. So see, now this is not a situation where again, putting into context, this is just this security analyst from Estonia saying stuff, you know? He could say whatever he wants. He could be like, you know what, the Russians have, decided to launch a nuke onto Mars or whatever. It doesn't matter because he's not the one that's making this documentary. It's not the Atlantic Council of statement what he's saying. Like they just found a guy to say it, and then they're just showing a dude saying something, you know?
Well, and what
It was a Chinese ship.
Go ahead.
well, and also we need to keep in mind that, you know, there's an American Atlantic Council, but there's all these European think tanks too. So the way to gain credibility, the Atlantic Council, okay, we need an expert. Let's get this clown Merrick because he's a security expert. As long as we call him a security expert, who's going to know otherwise, right? So I don't know who this guy Merrick is. He doesn't seem too smart to me.
Yeah. I mean,
In the case of Baltic Sea cable cutting, it was a Chinese ship with a Russian crew. So we can argue that China has done it already years.
It happened again in late December. Finland's President Alexander Stubb says heightened security in the Baltic is a priority.
The Finnish government and Finnish authorities have been dealing with an incident.
this is that context we brought up.
Oh, pause for a sec. So I just looked Buddy up. Yeah, he works for a European think tank. The Merrick
Oh
guy,
my god!
European think tank.
This is the most incestuous, faux intellectualism ever. Like you're just like, hey, you know what? We're gonna pay a dude to say what we want, and then we're going to just say that what he says is expert opinion. Kind of like the whole Dick Cheney and New York Times thing, where Dick Cheney would leak to New York Times that the Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, and then when people would ask him, how do we know Saddam had weapons of mass destruction? He'd point to the New York Times, be like, see, even the New York Times is talking about this. It was his own doing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Whereby 4 cables have been broken.
The Eagle S, a tanker suspected of being part of Russia's
Suspected.
skirting Western sanctions
Yep.
by covertly transporting Russian crude oil, is accused of dragging its anchor and
Accused,
cutting cables,
not proven. Accused.
including electricity cables, between Estonia and Finland. The
It's
Finnish
the
fleet-
Shadow Fleet.
Yep.
For anybody wondering, all you need to what is a Shadow Fleet? Shadow Fleet are any tankers who are not insured by London. That's basically it.
Well, I
That's
think
it. Like
when they say shadow fleet, they mean like the civilian shipping industry that is serving Russia's kind of like military in a little bit of an indirect way. But because it's not like World War, people aren't just taking out Russian, I don't know, tankers, other stuff like that. So they're calling those the shadow fleet of Russia, and the Ukrainians keep bringing up how, like, the sabotage. There's been a lot of sabotage on Russian ships lately, right? Remember, like, that they lost 2 cranes and stuff, and then there's another ship that was sabotaged. So and the ships that are being taken out aren't like military ships, because they're going for this is how they justify going for civilian targets, by the way. They're part of the shadow fleet. So
yeah,
but I'm
shadow fleet not insured by the UK. That's all you need to know. Like nothing nefarious or anything, just not insured by the UK.
They're not helping squeeze the anaconda coils on Russia. That's why it's the shadow fleet.
There you go.
And boarded the ship, which, according to some reports, was electronic spy gear.
It's too.
According to some reports, right? Like, once you start picking it up and you start picking up the language that these think tank types speak in, it becomes really easy to watch an article or read an article and determine whether or not it's real or not. You know what I mean? Just in the language that they're using, you can tell that there's nothing real.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why everything is superficial, because they've got no actual hard facts. So,
yep.
Conclusions yet. Why this happened? We know who did it.
I think they are sophisticated if we often.
Well, WAPO says you don't.
Yep.
It's not traditional warfare, but it is hybrid warfare, says Helsinki security analyst Alexei Aho, keeping the region off balance.
We are seeing the
rise
of China and also Russia.
Yeah, he's about 12 years old, and he's memorized a script that he was given to say. Yeah, he's a kid. He doesn't know shit.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Read your script, buddy. Go ahead.
Idea of Ruskimir.
Attaboy.
In its neighborhood.
He's like looking back at the script.
And there is this rising
I don't think so.
coalition of.
I mean, you don't have to be very old to have absorbed and internalize the Russophobic propaganda of NATO. I think that
fair enough.
You just gotta. It's how well does he know what he's talking about? I think we could discuss that kind of, because I don't know, but he definitely knows his perspective. I think their side of the story, because he's got.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's hard to memorize a script, right? I'm not taking that away from him, but deliver it, my friend. Come on, Finn.
Autocracies.
You're key.
All over the world, developing new methods to destabilize our societies.
The former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine is John Herbst. He is now the senior director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center.
There you go.
A more vigorous response from NATO and the United States.
Putin will wait.
So John Herbst is like one of the embarrassing stains of American diplomacy in the last decades. He was, as they said, the ambassador to Ukraine. And this guy, man, dude, you would have thought that maybe an ambassador to a country would have some kind of elementary feelings of some kind of a bond with the country that he's served as a ambassador to. But no, he's on board with, like, arm the Ukrainians, shove them into the meat grinder. This guy is a freaking cretin, and this guy's extraordinary Russophobe #1. So if you ever see Ambassador Herbst, you know that this is like chief Russophobe.
But you know what? That's what I don't understand is, given all of his baggage that you just mentioned, right? Why keep him in Europe? Like, why not deploy him somewhere where, like, he's not going to be present and he's not going to be the topic of conversation for people like you and I? You know what I mean? Like, send him off to friggin' Peru somewhere if he's an ambassador where he's not creating all sorts of havoc, right?
Well,
just by still being in Europe, he's a problem.
I think he's a former ambassador, but
no, but what I mean is that all they did was move him over to this Atlantic Council, but I'm guessing he's still based in Europe, you know?
Well, I think they have for the panel after this. I think it was held in the US, but I guess I don't know. But okay. Yeah, this guy is well, you just got to get a flavor for him.
NATO, led by the United States, reacts. We've seen a real uptick in Russian sabotage operations in Europe. And
now, like what?
Bombs on a DHL plane heading to the United
States.
States.
Give me an example. That wasn't proven. Where?
Yeah.
Give me you're full of shit.
Yeah.
You're full of shit.
This
Keep
guy
going.
straight up just is full of shit. He makes things up out of whole cloth all the time.
Well, this whole thing about DHL plane, it's not true. So what's he talking about? Keep going. And this is why their whole narrative is collapsing, because anybody with a 2-cent brain can get on the internet and figure this stuff out. And that's why the propaganda doesn't work anymore. We've become smarter than this.
Yeah, well, this is the best they got
from NATO. That's a serious, serious failure of will and of policy. So Putin's already playing with NATO's deterrence right now. Those games will grow in severity and in frequency.
Just ask the people who live here if Russian aggression is affecting them.
Finland was a non-aligned country for so long. How do you feel about the fact that you are now members of NATO?
I think this was a very good, actually, thing what happened, and I wonder why it took so long for us to join the NATO. Unfortunately, we were forced to wait the conflict in Ukraine, but it's good, and I'm really happy for it.
Should Vladimir Putin win the war in Ukraine and Ukraine falls, how are the other neighbors of Russia, like you, going to look at their safety?
I believe that Northern Europe or the Scandinavia or Baltics, we will not accept that Putin will win. And I truly trust that it will not happen. I hope so.
Are you surprised that it's almost as if the Cold War is coming back?
Of course we're surprised. We were really trustful for a peaceful life.
Are you afraid?
No, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid, but of course thinking about all the possibilities. All the possibilities.
Yeah, pause. All the possibilities. We're not going to have any money for healthcare. We're not going to have any money for pensions. Look at all these possibilities. This is what I don't understand. Like, for every one, person like that, there's all sorts of people, particularly in Finland and Estonia, who are really angry that they closed the border with Russia. Because for all those people who lived on border towns, they would hop over to Russia and they would do their grocery shopping, they would do their gas, all that stuff. Like, heading across the border to get cheap Russian stuff, that was part of how they survived. And ever since that was shut down, it's made their quality of life even worse. And for a lot of these like border towns, particularly way up north, there's nothing else up there, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got that. It's not like, hey, we're all in Stockholm, we're all in Helsinki. Like, way up north where you can hop the border, that's where a lot of these people would do their shopping, and they can't do that anymore, right? I was just watching a clip a couple days ago about in Norway, there's still one border crossing with Russia still open, like way up in the far north. Okay. And there's a bus that goes from Norway to Russia every day and back. Just
that's
people.
The way to get it out.
Yeah, and everybody was saying the same thing. Like, this is a real inconvenience for us, because the reason we're going, we got family there. Like, this border is a line in the sand, but we got family, we've got business interests, we got all this stuff. So for people on the border towns with Russia, they seem to get along with the Russians. The people in the capitals and the people, who are running the governments and these globalists, they might have a problem with them, but the common folk, no, why would you?
By and large, and you notice who they were interviewing. They interviewed boomers, basically old ass people, and asked them if they think that this is a good idea. I don't see that they're interviewing a lot of young Finns. They have that one analyst, but I mean, that's where his bread is buttered. He gets paid to say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why isn't this working?
Deep in the forests of Finland, they are keenly aware of present and past tensions with their Russian neighbor. There's been a border here in places since the 1500s, often a flashpoint for incursion and dispute.
Of course.
It is Matti Pitkanini's job to patrol this border in the Karelia region of Finland.
What do you think is going to happen if Russia wins in Ukraine?
That is, I think, $1 million question. Maybe if I can answer to you with a question. Have you ever met a millionaire who, after earning his or her first million, has said that this is enough, I don't want any more? I don't think so.
So it's pretty isolated here.
Oh my god,
yeah.
dude.
Okay. Like,
That's
so you're going to go to war over that? Like
Well-
your analogy of comparing, like,
Well, he's saying that
I
have
don't
you ever
know,
seen
like-
somebody stop after they succeed? Basically,
Right.
he's saying that Putin is like a imperial, like a pathologically imperialist or something. That he's like expansionist in a like almost a knee-jerk reaction way. So like, oh, that he's gonna basically have this complex like a millionaire. You know?
well, it's, yeah, basically what he's saying is humans are greedy, right? So you get your first million, you need the next million. You get your first country, you need the next country.
And
This
that's
is,
the threat.
and this is such a false equivalency, right? Like anybody who can step back and think logically of comparing those two would quickly realize that they're very different things. So yeah, this guy, he's a border cop and he's not too bright.
Obviously, and this is the reason why he is part of the one getting interviewed, right? I'm sure
Right.
they interviewed that was like, I don't know about all that.
Oh yeah, no, they came in here and they said, they went into every Finnish town and they said, okay, where's your village idiot? We need to talk to your village idiot. Point him out. And the big guy with the beard, oh, Jurgen, he's right down at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
Him and his wife every day. They're as dumb as a bag of rocks. Go have a chat.
Like, oh god damn. Then Jurgen becomes like internet famous.
It is remote areas. The blue and white border mark, that's the Finnish side. The red and green is on the Russian side. And the small white pole there in the middle, that is the exact borderline.
Oh, okay.
So there is no no man's zone in between. But it's exact line going from that white pole to the next border mark, which the pair you can see over there. So that over there is Russia.
Finland shares a border with Russia that is 837 miles long. And while much of it is very quiet and peaceful, like it is here, no one knows for sure what is really going on just on the other side.
Big orgy, huge Russian orgy. That's it.
Nobody knows what's going on.
Nobody knows what's going on. Okay. Again, Russian boogeyman hiding in the woods. That's all I'm seeing from this guy.
Yep.
Knows for sure
Why is
what's
it
really going on just on the other side.
It's like freezing. I wonder what's going on here. Let me like skip ahead. Or skip ahead again. I have no idea what is going on here. Skip ahead again. It's not playing it. What if I go to the YouTube website? Well, where were we at? Roughly like 10 or so minutes in. YouTube. Okay, it's called Putin's Endgame, the stakes beyond Ukraine. Something's going on with my computer. Can't connect to my internet. But are we still recording?
Let me see. Yeah, we're still recording.
Dude, this is weird. So on why isn't it freaking working? Why did it stop? Let me try to reload this browser. That is so freaking weird. Oh shit. God damn it. All right, let's see if it works now. Geez, what was that? Why did it just like stop?
Yeah, me, dude. I'm the Gen Xer.
All right, Kat. I'm so sorry, but you're like really in the way. You're gonna have to like move. All right, I'm so sorry. Okay, then let me do this.
I just loaded the file here if you want.
Okay,
play it
if this
from
doesn't
here?
work, we'll do that. Because I mean,
All right.
it seems like this other browser is still working. I hope. You're 10 minutes in. Let's find out. Yep. What the fuck happened? No idea. But you can't see my screen now, right?
No.
Standing
I'll
tall
just share.
on NATO's eastern
Okay.
front.
Pretty isolated here.
It's like 10 minutes in. All right.
Then the Soviet.
One side of the river is Narva,
There
Estonia.
we go.
That you can get away.
Across the border,
like 10
overwhelming
minutes
the
in, I think.
system.
Hold on.
Somewhere
The
around here.
society in a big.
For
There we go.
the Finnish
Good enough.
people,
Yeah.
that they push them back.
Yeah, it is, but of course we didn't push them back completely. That area over there, that used to be Finnish territory 100 years ago. So that is a part of the Finland that we lost. Nowadays it's accepted in the society in a big way, but yes, we lost many brave Finns when we in the Second World War trying to keep our independence and keep our land.
A barren strip of no man's land.
Yo, like the Finns fought on the side of Nazi Germany in World War II. They fucking did the siege of Leningrad was only possible due to the Finns. Like the Finns were the fact that they only lost a little bit of territory and the Russians gave back most of it, that they got off so easy because millions of people died in Leningrad. Putin came from Leningrad. He's a survivor from Leningrad. His brother died. I think his parents died or something too. Like, I don't remember. But like so basically like go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, no, I'm just saying that like for the Finns to have this fit, like that used to be ours. I mean, it's accepted, but you know, it still used to be ours. It's like, okay, what do you not know what bad thing you did? Like where everybody was just like, go apologize, you know, and the Russians were really nice to give you back anything at all after that, after what you guys pulled.
Well, from what I recall in what I've read about the Finn-Russian war, and I haven't read a whole lot on it, but yeah, the Finns did fight pretty fiercely, and they put up more of a fight than the Soviets thought. But at the end of the day, I don't think it was really a fight that the Soviets wanted to make, and that's why they negotiated the deal with the Finns that they did, because it's like, you know, why are we fighting the Finns? You know?
Well, you know, I think it's been a while since I read up on it, but it basically it was like they tried to do it diplomatically. Joseph Stalin tried to be really diplomatic with the Finns, but they were not having it, probably with like due to some external pressure. And when the Finns joined with the Nazis, you know, they took back some territory and they just kind of like helped in the blockade of Leningrad. You know, that's kind of what they did. So I think that there's been a lot of exaggeration of how well the Finns did and how poorly the Red Army did, but I think there's no doubt that it was a disaster for the Red Army by and large. I think that certain stories, like for example, the deadliest sniper ever, it's probably BS. What's his name? The White Death or whatever. It's probably an early example of wartime propaganda. This guy with like a Mosin Nagant with no scope kills like 1,000 people. Like, I don't know. That's such bullshit. That's no way. So, and you know, with no proof, no evidence, it's just like you know, I'm sure that he got some kills, but I don't think that there was some masterful beastly sniper who got like that. There's a lot of like stories like that to help into the propaganda of exactly how that went down.
Eyes and ears. Russia has been using hybrid tactics here too, flooding Finnish towns by forcing migrants across the border, overwhelming the system. Migrants on children's bicycles who had no idea where they were or what they were being forced to do. The Finns use.
Notice how they don't talk to any of these people, ask them anything. They just say something and then they show them going on a bus. It's kind of like implied, like, oh, they're being shipped back to Russia. Fuck you guys, you know, without your bicycles.
Well, my guess is this. I'm guessing this is stock footage. I'm guessing they weren't actually there for this because I don't think they'd be allowed to be this close to them. But so I'm guessing this is just Russian footage. But I've heard this argument before, but I see no evidence of it, right? Like, I just see no evidence that there's this massive population coming through Finland and Estonia and Latvia from Africa into Europe.
Well, I don't
Russia.
know if he thinks about they're flooding them with African immigrants. I think they think that they're flooding them with Russians or pro-Russians.
No, what I read was Africans, because and but you could be right. Maybe it's a mixed bag of a bunch. But again, I just don't. I haven't seen any concrete evidence of it.
Yeah,
even if they were, like, let's say that they were,
Mhm.
and let's say that you're a refugee and you are trying to make your way to Finland, right? There's no onus on Russia to keep you in Russia, is there? Why would they? So I this is one of these silly arguments that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah,
And
I think
it's
by and large
just a
fear-mongering.
little.
It's fear mongering and threat
yeah.
inflation is what you're saying to them. Here's what when you hear somebody say, like, this is what the Russians are doing, or this is what the Russians are thinking, or this is what the Russians are wanting, or this is what the Russians are playing. Whenever you hear that, what you're actually being told is this is something that we should be concerned about, because
Sure.
Russians are concerned about this. That means we should be concerned about this. We can't be the only ones not concerned about such an important thing, kind of. But I think that this is, I'm sure there's some of that going on. I'm sure there's spies in countries and all this kinds of stuff. But I think that this is more than anything just an exaggeration to try to continue the isolation of Russia, more than anything else.
Weaponizing borders, all that stuff. Yep.
To Russia's game playing, put down a marker of their own, closing all their land borders with Russia.
If we start losing here, and we show that you can get away with that kind of things.
All of us are thinking that what happens the next? Can we be the next target?
Sweden and Finland gave up neutrality to join NATO following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now they're providing their citizens with written guidance on how to prepare and survive should, quote, hostile entities threaten.
You want to know who's a village idiot?
Way to go, Sweden and Finland. Like
the village idiot is this Walter Cronkite wannabe here.
I think it's hilarious that he's holding this up. He's like, so they've joined, and now they're getting warned about their pending death. And it's like he doesn't see the irony in it at all, right? Anyway, fool.
Their national security.
If the time comes, we're gonna do what needs to be done.
You'll have to go to the army? You will anyway, though, yeah? You're going to serve your country.
They're like, why are you bothering me, old man?
Did you see what happened there?
What, like they were like totally apathetic? They're like, okay, yeah, we will, like that.
No. What he said, he framed it to the kids, and he basically said, if the time comes, he said, you will do what needs to be done or whatever.
Yeah,
and they didn't say. And then he said to them, but you will join the army.
Because you have to.
You have to. That's the thing. It's mandatory service in Finland. So they nodded to, well, yes, obviously we have to join the army. Mm-hmm. But the way he's trying to frame it for the documentary is these two kids are saying, yes, absolutely, we will fight the Russians.
Yeah.
Did you watch it again? Let's watch it again. That's what he did.
And survive should, quote, hostile entities threaten their national security.
If the time comes, we're gonna do what needs to be done.
Yeah. You'll have to go to the army? You will anyway, though, yeah? You're going to serve your country.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, exactly. Like smiling, like
but
weirdo.
He said it at the end. You're going to serve your country, just to put it home, because the average person doesn't know that Finland has mandatory service and stuff, right? So they're just seeing that and seeing, okay, yeah, these two brave young kids. What a piece of garbage this presenter is.
In the 3 years since the invasion of Ukraine, no country has taken more notice than the small border nation of Estonia, which, along with the other Baltic states, was brutalized by the Soviets.
This is one of NATO's easternmost borders. On one side of the river is Narva, Estonia, and on the other is Russia. And Vladimir Putin has already said that he has designs on retaking Narva.
Not true. I actually looked into this because when I heard that, I said, that doesn't sound like something Putin.
That's such bullshit, yeah.
Well, here's the thing. So I looked into that claim, and there's a bit of truth to it, but when you actually put it all into context, you figure out that there's no truth to it. So basically, in June of 2022, so but 2.5 years ago, back when the war first started, Putin was giving a speech to a bunch of kids at some sort of technical institute or something. I don't know what it was.
That's right. That's where this is from, cheese.
And they got on the discussion of Sweden, actually, Sweden and Finland, because at that time they hadn't joined NATO. So Putin, as he's prone to do, I think the question came up about Sweden and Finland joining NATO. Putin, as he's prone to do, started going through 300 years of history. So he started talking about Peter the Great and Gustav and the war from 300 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what Putin said, the gist of it, if you get it, and it's on YouTube, you can find it. He basically says something along the lines of, yeah, they're St. Petersburg used to be Swedish. Narva used to be Swedish and whatever. He basically, he was actually speaking about St. Petersburg, not Narva.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically said St. Petersburg was Swedish at that time because they came and took it from us. And he said we had to take it back from him. So he said, it looks like the Europeans are coming again. So we'll and he laughed when he said it. So he was joking. He said, if the Europeans are coming again, we'll have to take it again, right? And
that's right. I remember
he was clearly joking. Like you can see that on the thing. Yet this guy has framed that as being, the reason why Estonia should be scared because Putin thinks that they're going to take over Narva. Reality is, if you go to Estonia, there's not much there worth taking. Frankly,
well, yeah, just completely pulling it out of context. It's again that lie by omission.
With an Estonian flag on one side and a Russian flag on the other, the city of Narva and its 13th century castle sit precariously within arm's reach of a much larger neighbor and former master. Estonians often display their animosity towards Vladimir Putin's expansionism from their castle on their side of the river.
Estonian government?
Yeah, Estonians? Like, what do you mean by Estonians? Like, what are they?
Well, I go back to, like, I'm guessing a lot of Estonians, not all. Like, I'm sure that there's Russophobia there, like everywhere, but I'm guessing there's a whole lot of Estonians who just want to go shop.
Well, no, I think that Estonians, there's a lot of Russophobia in all those Baltic countries.
Oh, no doubt, right? But there's also a lot of people who just want to shop, and there's a lot of Russians there too, right?
That's the thing. There's like a quarter of the population or something is Russian.
Yeah.
Estonia, if Putin wins Ukraine.
Oh, hold up. All right.
I've thought about it, actually.
What's happening?
It's like freezing a little bit. Let me rewind a little bit.
Actually.
Why?
I don't know.
It's terrifying to think about this.
Yes, and the part of our brain is just blocking.
This scary thought about...
Yeah, because we don't know what this guy wants and what consequences this will bring to us.
Doesn't that tell you everything?
The Narva border today is closed to all but
you don't know
foot.
what he wants. Maybe he just doesn't want anything, Like, and that's the thing. Like, these kids are, it's so overwhelming to even think about it. But you can't even articulate what the potential
threat is, where it's coming.
Threat is. like if you can't even articulate what the threat is and why it's a threat, it's probably not a threat.
Yeah. You probably would have felt threatened if it was a real threat, and you would be able to be like, that is what's threatening me.
Right.
Traffic.
And here's why.
It's an eerie place, like a grainy black and white Cold War spy thriller.
Were the Russians sending people over like they were at other border crossings?
Last year there was 3 attempts. All was stopped in the middle.
You probably don't have subtitles, do you?
No.
Too bad.
Nobody crossed.
Nobody got in?
No.
Why were they doing it?
You must ask from them. Sorry. Okay. This question you must ask from them. Why are they doing this?
Well, 3
But it was
attempts.
organized, of course.
3 attempts to cross the
Sure.
border. That doesn't seem like very many.
Not
Right?
at all. I mean, I guess maybe that's in his post or whatever. Maybe in other ones, the argument is there's more. I guess.
Sounds
But
pretty
I
good
mean,
to me.
that's not.
Anyway.
That doesn't sound like the Russian invasion force to me. There, you know.
Oh, buddy, you've got so many people coming over the border in Vermont illegally all the time. Like,
Yeah.
you get tons of them every day.
It's an
3 in a
actual
year?
invasion.
I don't get it.
Do you worry about them?
Of course we are worried, but not scared. If
But
you're
not
scared,
scared.
If you're scared, don't work here.
Maybe don't live here.
Well, I'm 23 years here, so
Yeah.
still alive.
Already the heavy hand of the Nazi has begun its insufferable...
The Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania were overrun in the Second World War, first by the Nazis, then the Soviets. Citizens were murdered or exiled to Siberian labor camps.
So think about the framing of that context, right? So the Soviets defeating Nazi Germany and liberating you guys from these genocidal maniacs, that's being framed as first they were invaded by these bad guys, then they were invaded by those bad guys. So that is the fantasy of people like Herbst, people in the Atlantic Council, to rewrite the history in that manner.
Today, long lines wait to cross the Narva Bridge for visits to relatives on the Russian side and cheap shopping.
Everyone who wants to go to Russia, to their relatives, friends, have to use this way.
More difficult than before.
Yeah.
Complete without any smuggling and sanction busting.
Here, pause it for a second, maybe if I can catch up. I don't know, it's like freezing.
Yeah, it's choppy for me.
know,
1 sec. Let's pause.
this plan of Putin. We know this, and he said some months ago.
Pause.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Wait, shit, what? Oh, yeah, it's
Yes.
paused.
So the overarching theme of all, well, the overarching theme of all these people, if you notice, they all talk about Putin's plan, yet none of them admittedly know it. And they'll tell you, yeah, this Putin's plan, if you know, if we'd know it.
So
So
we don't know
they
what
all
he's
think
gonna
that
do.
Putin has a plan. We don't know what the plan is. We can't even articulate a small piece of the plan. Maybe there's just not a plan here, fella. What do you think?
Yeah. Or maybe you're making it, maybe the plan is in your head.
He wants to took back Narva.
Sure, he does.
And of course, this is very serious.
Of course,
a serious message
Very
from Putin.
serious, yes.
But we trust God.
Gotta trust
Not
God.
Putin.
Not Putin. God.
Not Biden.
Not Biden.
Trump.
God.
Not Trump.
Only God.
Only God. Putin just stakes beyond Ukraine again.
In the Estonian capital of Tallinn, the deputy director of the Police and Border Patrol says Russia's hybrid harassment is a daily occurrence.
Have they also been sort of jamming your radio signals or
I love this part.
communication attack?
Yes, they're doing that. GNS jamming is everyday thing. Basically, everyday GNS signals is Russian Federation try to jam them down, and it's sometimes it affects our commercial aircraft companies. And we have been some cases where they wasn't able land.
So let's think about that. The Russians are engaged, according to this guy over here, right? According to that analyst or whatever his title is. What was it? Let's see if I can see. This dude here, right? So this guy says that he seems like he's some kind of police, some kind of official. This guy says that the Russians are trying to jam Finnish, I think,
airlines
GPS, and every day. He says every day, or it might be Estonia. I don't know. Every day is trying to do it. They're trying to jam their stuff, and sometimes it might even cause a problem. Okay, first of all, that sounds like the worst jamming campaign of all time. Then, like, what? It's they're every day. The Russians are desperately trying to jam Estonia's like freaking GPS signals, and they just can't. Or why haven't we used these amazing techniques to jam Russian, to subvert Russian jamming on the battlefield in Ukraine? I'm sure that would have been freaking useful if we had the ability to do that. We would have been able to do that. Well, if we had the ability to do that, we would have done that. So this is hilarious. Like, every day, the Russians are just jamming our stuff, and sometimes an airplane might not be able to land.
Well, here comes the Whopper, I'm sure.
Cases where they wasn't able land.
While Vladimir Putin has suggested that he invaded Ukraine to keep NATO out of his backyard, his actions have resulted in just the opposite. These are NATO tanks, new British Challenger tanks to be exact, inside Estonia.
Great.
The UK understands their part in defending NATO's eastern flank.
He's got the most French-sounding British name I've ever seen.
You know what? He does. Major Jean-Sébastien Cormier. But freaking A, dude, this guy. Yeah, we're ready to fight. We're ready to bring the fight. We know we take seriously our responsibility, in the British Army to defend NATO's eastern flank. Oh my gosh, dude! Speaking of village idiot, dude. Like,
all right, John Sebastian, tell us how tough you are.
Yeah, wait till you hear what they're planning to take on the Russian army with.
Part of the world, we would be ready to fight tomorrow.
So what is new? British Major Jean-Sébastien Cormier says a full British brigade, some 3,000 troops, now stands at the ready only 100 kilometers from the Russian border.
Oh, 3,000, a full brigade. Oh my God, 3,000 troops.
That sounds like an awfully small brigade, though, doesn't it?
That sounds like a snack for the Russian army. That's what that sounds like. It sounds like it could be a snack for the Ukrainian army. Right now, the AFU could probably just go in there and mop the floor with these guys, and including the entire Estonia if they had to. Like, this is a joke where, like, only 100 kilometers away from the border, dun 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 dun, intense music in the background, we are ready to take the fight on to the Russians, dun dun dun. We have a full brigade, some 3,000 troops, dun 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 dun. That is what you're going to take the Russians on with 3,000 troops, you fool.
Well, like, the target audience for this is not you and I, right? Because we have an interest in this, and we know that 3,000 troops, that, like I said, that sounds like a really small brigade to me. Usually brigades are about 5, aren't they? So the fact that they've only got half a brigade there and they're calling it a brigade, yeah, it's nothing burger. But the target audience isn't you and I. The target audience is just Joe Stupid, who they hear Challenger tank and they say, wow, Challenger tank, that sounds impressive. And they don't have any clue that they've been utter failures on the battlefield in Ukraine, right? They don't have any clue that the Russians are mopping up anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 Ukrainian soldiers a day, right? So the 3,000 troops there, what's that, a day and a half?
That's a snack. That's what I'm saying.
It's not impressive at all. but we're not the market for this.
Some 3,000 troops, man. That's like on one battlefield they can lose that much in like a day.
Listen, his name is Jean Sebastian. He better be tough. I think he can beat the whole Russian army himself.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Should Putin get aggressive?
Perhaps part of your job is to now show that aggressor that you're serious.
And I think that we do that every day by being here, by having our people here, by rehearsing brigade deployments out here, as we did with 16 Air Assault Brigade last year, as we will do with 4 Brigade this year. That's how we do it. We show by being absolutely clear that those things are here when they need to be, and are integrated and work seamlessly with the allies and partners that they need to, because that's what's going to be the winning combination here.
But what we have seen is that now the Europe is awakening. They are starting to pour money into defense, and they're really starting to.
Are they? Because I haven't seen that either. Like all I hear about is talk of funding European militaries, but I've never seen a check cut yet. In fact, quite the opposite. Olaf Scholz removed the Ukraine funding from the latest German budget. So if this guy is talking about, all these European countries who are stepping up to the plate to, refund their military, I haven't seen any evidence of it yet. Have you?
I mean, I think that maybe they mean like in Eastern European kind of countries. They're trying to do this more. I mean, look at Poland. Poland is a great example. They've definitely beefed up their military spending, their military equipment, their military industrial complex. So
fair enough. Yeah.
These little Estonias, these little, Bulgarias and stuff. I'm sure that they are even just maybe they're even pressured. Maybe they don't even have that much of a choice than to double down on investment. I don't know, but okay.
Take the European defense seriously.
Estonian Major General Vahar Karas says his government has been warning its Western allies for years about Putin's ultimate goals and is ready to respond if Putin acts on them.
What happens if Vladimir Putin wins the war in Ukraine?
Baltic states would, for them, maybe seem like the most kind of suitable next target, taking the Baltic countries kind of small number of inhabitants. It's a very narrow territory, but every day we are working to get this message over to Russia that even if you try, we will make you pay. Right from the first moment you want to try something with us.
Do you feel a little bit like Czechoslovakia in 1939 or something?
No, because we are members of NATO. Czechoslovakia was pretty much alone at that moment. And if the question is whether Estonia can do it alone, well, we are not alone. We have the Latvians, we have the Lithuanians, we have the whole NATO. And we know that Article 5 works, because otherwise the countries in Western Europe and across the Atlantic will have larger problems. They have to start.
This guy's creepy, dude.
If NATO is not working.
I think is that if Russia we used to have, it means that you can change the borders of independent country with war.
In a Tallinn park, we meet former Estonian intelligence officer Marek Kov, now of the International Center for...
Let's see, maybe if I pause it for a second, it'll buffer a little bit. This guy again. All right, we've already seen him once. All right, let's see. Fingers crossed.
Defense and security. His take? In assessing the security threats the Kremlin poses, the West also needs to call out Putin's bluffs.
I don't think Putin is irrational. I think he's rational in the
I'm trying to pause it again.
That he understands that.
Yeah, I don't know why it is freezing up like that. So he said, like, I don't think Putin is an irrational man. I don't know. Should we rewind it a little bit because it was like glitching? Whatever. There's not saying anything new. Okay, come on, work. We're almost done. We're almost through.
Is without reserves right now, and he has to understand that NATO's nuclear power is way over Russian nuclear power. So in this case, I would say that he's.
So wait, actually, NATO's Russia has, I think, the most nukes, right, of any country. Russia has nuclear delivery systems that are next generation at this point that nobody in NATO has. Not just we don't have. Nobody in NATO has. The North Koreans have hypersonic glide vehicles. Nobody in like of the Americans, we don't have hypersonic missiles, you know. So I mean, this whole thing about NATO is stronger, NATO has more nuclear clout. I think that is just maybe a hopeful speak.
Bluffing a lot, and we shouldn't perceive his bluffs as powerful.
Are China and Russia that allied?
They are definitely allied. It's for sure that Russia couldn't be in the war right now at this point if there wasn't Chinese support. So Chinese are giving material support, they are buying Russian oil, but they are also providing some dual-use technology.
You want to stop Putin? You don't have to lose one American soldier. Just arm Ukraine appropriately and allow them to use our weapons as they see fit. In conjunction.
Look at this guy. So this former ambassador to Ukraine is advocating for just enable the destruction of Ukraine. Just continue to arm them. We don't have to lose any American lives. What is he saying? He's saying give them the weapons and let them die. You know, we can achieve some partial of our national security maybe goals or whatever, or at least they think they can, at the expense of Ukrainians. So like this guy is the worst. This is the worst friend Ukraine has ever had. This is like your enemies are better than your friends situation. Like this guy gets no hell, fucking fucks nothing. He's just like whatever. Send it to them.
You know, talking to us, but as they see fit.
And finish the job.
Yes. The weakness of our policy under Biden has increased the chance of ultimately a clash between the United States and either Russia or China. There are people around Trump, the loudest people around Trump, who would pursue a policy far weaker than Biden's. And like Biden, they've been intimidated by Moscow's nuclear bluster. I also understand that people in Trump's camp are very concerned that this could also be his
freaking former ambassador, somebody should understand, is basically saying, just do what you want and don't care about Russian red lines. It's all nuclear bluster. Don't worry. We just do what we want. This is a former ambassador.
Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan moment.
Worst diplomat since Antony Blinken.
That too is a positive indicator that they will seek an endurable peace, a sustainable peace.
Trump, as a president, as a leader of the free world, has this opportunity now become the Churchill of our time.
This is Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna. He has high hopes for President Donald Trump's new administration.
I agree with Trump and also all the other previous US presidents during the last maybe 15 years. Europe must pay more. We must invest more to our defense. Estonia is doing this year 3.4% of GDP, and on top of that, our new government decided to invest to fulfill the NATO regional defense plans.
Yeah, buddy, you're an idiot. And I'm guessing your constituents would rather you take that money and put it into healthcare or anything, because the people in Estonia need it. Go to Estonia. They're poor there. They don't need 4% of their GDP on missiles. They need more stuff that's going to help them day to day.
That needs to go into the economy.
Like anybody in Estonia who's begging for more of their GDP to go to military spending, you're a room temperature IQ idiot. Because Estonia needs lots of stuff, and missiles aren't one of them.
Well, I know that, and I'm sure you were there for the conversation, the last open mic, about the sort of tongue-in-cheek jokes that are made by Estonians from former Soviet countries. So
yeah,
that just kind of
the assault on Ukraine continues. Civilians die, homes and cities and livelihoods wrecked. Yet, Ukrainians fight on. But roughly 3 years after Putin's invasion, the war is entering what seems to be a final phase, and a deal to end it seems within grasp.
Putin is using this opportunity to declare the terms and also to declare the victory. Or he takes it as a pause to
that's what
again
happens in
aggression
war.
in Ukraine or wherever.
Victory,
Though we must be very clear that this peace is not peace only for Ukraine. This peace must be the peace in our region and a clear message to everybody that you cannot use the force without responsibilities.
Ukraine's neighbors will not think of letting Putin win.
We must be ready to guarantee this agreement, boots on the ground. And I repeat once and more that NATO is the best way for that. NATO membership, NATO troops, NATO as an organization to guarantee the peace is the most efficient and also the most
to guarantee peace. Oh.
Imagine you're a parent in Europe, particularly in Estonia, and you're watching this ghoul of a man who's basically saying, we need to come and take your kids. Yeah. So, like, no parent, nobody in Europe is buying into this rubbish.
I don't know, man. The propaganda is good. I think the propaganda is good, and I think there's a lot of
I don't think so.
All right.
So, European leaders must discuss the opportunity, if there won't be full membership of NATO as a part of the peace.
He's the type of scumbag I'd love to knock out. Anyway, so I just had to say that. He looks like somebody I'd have great fun choking out. Anyway.
Agreement. Then there must be a real security. All the authoritarian regimes and dictatorships, so-called with evil guys, they are watching very carefully what will be results of this aggression.
Because you could be next.
We could be next.
This is your country.
You might not be, though. You always got to keep that in mind. Chances are you won't be.
This guy's such a dunce, man. This dude here is such a dunce.
This is our country. But this is not only our country. This is a border between democracies and dictatorship.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So I love how they talking about how it's unprecedented to have these borders shift in this way.
Right.
Meanwhile, wait. Let's think about Israel. What's going on there right now? I think the borders are shifting. Turkey, right? Freaking.
Well, Ukraine's borders have shifted 4 times in the last 100 years.
Well, I mean, just look at NATO, dude. Just NATO doing it alone. Just like these are NATO's actions. This is like changing the borders in Yugoslavia. You know, like, oh, it's how unprecedented for that to happen. Like, okay, whatever. That in order for you to like buy into that, you have to be so completely clueless, you know, so underinformed and naive.
Well, and that's why before we started rolling with the documentary, I said to everybody, keep in mind before you watch this, if you remember, I said to everybody,
they admitted it.
This is one of the best think tanks out there, is the Atlantic Council.
Yeah.
And this was the best that they could come up with, was this tripe, because it was like, I felt the whole thing was just extremely superficial. Like, it was the same narrative. Putin bad, Russian boogeymen in the woods, we could be next. But there was no context as to why that might be. Like, if you have evidence, provide the evidence. If you have, you know, historical context or whatever, provide that. They didn't do any of that. They just stuck to this kind of very flat narrative the entire time, which is Putin bad, boogeymen in woods. That's it.
Yeah, and over dramatic music, and they just reasserted their talking points. That's all that happened.
Right.
But that's
and this just shows if this is the best that they have.
Yeah. This
is it. Game over,
yeah,
guys.
this is where they get the news from. This is where like news people get the that write the news in your New York Times and stuff. Like this is their sources a lot by and large. And these guys are the ones that go and advise senators and all kinds of stuff like that. And they have tremendous political influence in the US. And you can see, if you watch that, you can see what it is that they're spending all that money on. This guy went all the way around the freaking world to Finland, to Estonia. He's interviewing people, shoving microphones in kids' faces, invading diners, bothering the entire freaking European world to ask them, what will happen if Putin wins in Ukraine? Like that's his like deep burning question. He just keeps asking everybody that, like, as if that's supposed to be journalism, I guess. That's supposed to be like journalism role play, journalism LARP. I don't even know. That was like fake journalism, the most fake journalism.
I just love the fact that they spent all this time putting this together.
Yeah.
And then 3 days later, the establishment just totally killed the narrative with the Washington Post article, right? So it's kind of like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing.
It just makes them look like bumbling fools, like the bumbling fools they are. Like, we're just two nobodies, and we're able to go through and just pick them apart and point out this is ridiculous, and it really is ridiculous.
Speaking of bumbling fools, should we go to the 2 scoops of crazy?
Okay, let's do that. I don't think this is actually as ridiculous. What kind of voice? I feel like this is actually a little bit less ridiculous than
I do now too, yes.
But okay.
Right here where it says put 1 slice, we heard, I am the devil.
What kind of voice did the devil have?
A very low voice, I'd say sounded like Eli Wallach.
Have you saved any of this satanic toast?
Yes, I did save it because I wanted to be sure that somebody else would see it. Now this one, can you see that, Richard? Satan lives. Just terrible.
Is the toaster still possessed?
We still have trouble off and on with it, yes. Oh, see now it's...
I just hold it down.
It seems to be aware.
It seems to be aware.
Oh!
Why have you kept this toaster?
Well, Richard, when all is said and done, it makes good toast.
For today, Boyd Mattson, NBC News, Boca Raton, Florida.
Right here where it says put 1.
That's great.
Florida woman. I didn't even catch that she was in Florida the first time I watched it. I did. Do you have any of the satanic toast? I wanted to make sure that somebody would see it, so I did. And as you can see, it says, "Dun dun dun."
Satan lives. Just terrible.
Is the toaster still possessed?
Terrible.
We still have trouble off and on with it, yes.
I wonder what this is. Like, what is this? Did they sabotage their own toaster for this?
Oh, see now it's...
Did they put something in there to cause this reaction? This seems like a little bit too much.
It seems to be aware. Oh!
Why have you kept this toaster?
Well, Richard, when all is said and done, it makes good toast.
For today, Boyd Mattson, NBC News.
That's the most important part. Dude, you buy a toaster for the toast. You don't buy a toaster for the spiritual, the spiritual properties of the toaster. This toaster apparently is part of the great cosmic battle between heaven and hell. And this toaster is here to remind you, there is a demon in your house. Not even in your house. There's a demon in your toaster. This is excellent. I love this lady. She's my favorite.
Yeah, the 80s were like that. Back in the 80s, the devil was everywhere. Just so you know,
Panic and all that?
Seriously, there was a time. Oh yeah, there was a time in the mid 80s when the devil was in all of our music. It was in all of our toasters. Like, it was just a really strange time when women like this saw evil everywhere and children had to be saved. It was very strange.
I think there were books about it too. There was a lot of satanic books about it where they were afraid that there was actual real satanic literal rituals and stuff. So I think that Satanic Panic had a lot of that kind of weirdness going on. But this one is just, this is not even, this is just like gold. I love this thing. Well, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, it makes good toast.
Well, anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this one, guys, and hopefully you enjoyed the Atlantic Council documentary.
That's right.
I can't imagine why you would. Like, it was all, like I said, very superficial. Like, I didn't really learn anything from it as such, other than how poor the it's just how poorly the Western propaganda has become. That if this is, you know, the best type of stuff that they can come out with, it's just, like I said, it was all very baseline and flat to me.
Yeah.
And with the same old tropes that is not going to win over anybody. Like, I don't think anybody in Europe is buying into a war with Russia.
Straight up childish narratives.
Yeah.
But okay, guys, I guess that is our episode 12 of Hell in a Handbasket. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget to do the likes and subscribes and YouTube things.
Yep.
All right. Peace.
And we'll check you later.